Code Blue, room 305.
Time of death 7:06.
It's time to harvest the soul.
Right, let's get started. So I'm using clay. This is regular, pottery clay, cheap kind at the craft store. And we're going to sculpt the horns out of this. So I'm just scooping some of this clay. And I think I might make 2 different types of horns. I mix this with a little bit of water. So now it's nice and pliable. So I'm going to make the 2 horns. And I want a short regular horn and maybe a little bit longer one with a twist. And we're going to make 1 of each and we can mix and match it. So to do that, we're going to do a horn shape. And the first one is going to be just a simple horn, kind of like inspired by like the horns of a cow maybe, or a bull, like that. Very simple. And then on the bottom, what I want to do is make it nice and square. Great. There's the horn. I want it to curve just slightly inward. Right? So that looks great right there. We are going to sculpt any texture. We're going to sculpt any texture that you want onto this horn. You can make it really pointy. You can make it the flat end. The other thing I'm going to do is going to put a little edge around the bottom. So I'll make a snake. And this base, this snake on the base will help when you mount it on your head. That way it looks like it's bursting out of your head, as opposed to trying to make like a really thin edge that you need to blend into your skin, because that is like specialized FX makeup that I am not very good at. Great. Now we can blend this edge a little bit. We can use something like this tool right here. What I want to do is just blend it to the ground a little bit. That way it gives you a flat area to mount to your head. Or to mount it on whatever you're going to mount it, because these horns can be mounted on a mask, it could be mounted on a skull, or anywhere you want. Now I'm just blending the edges onto the horn. And it doesn't have to be perfectly blended, because remember that this is your skin where the horn is busting out. Nice, that looks good. And now we texture it whichever way you want, and you can use a brush, you can use a little pin, you could use something like a pin like this to like draw some lines going up, kind of like deer horns. Then we'll smooth them out. Right, you can smooth them out then with your hand with a little bit of water. Do a little bit of texturing here so it looks like the horn is kind of exploded out of the skin. I'm going to have a bunch of lines just running towards the end here. We'll smooth those out later. Now that I'm done with these lines, you can take something like a brush like this and also add a little bit of texture there. It also tames down the other lines as well. And we're casting this out of latex, so the detail doesn't have to be that intricate. You can always use your paint job to make the horns look exactly like you want. I'm just smoothing it out a bit, but I like this. Check that out. That's looking really cool, really organic. If some parts are just too strong, then just brush over them, because this will tame the big lines quite a bit. It'll draw over them. Now the part down here is the part that I want it to look like it's busting out of the skin. So I'm just lifting some of the clay out, kind of like this came out of your head or your whatever you're growing it out of. Alright, that looks cool, and the other thing I'm going to do is just square up the skin on the bottom, and this one should be done. I'm using this little tool to kind of not blending it all the way to the ground, but just a little bit. I'm just making the seam just a little bit thinner so that you can cover it with fake blood and it'll look cool. And this horn, I like how it looks. You can just leave it like that. I'm going to put the horn here because that's where we're going to build the mold, and we'll sculpt the other one here. Alright, so I'm going to lift this carefully and put it right here where we can make the mold. That looks good. Let's sculpt the other one. So for this one, I want it to be more like a unicorn horn or something with like a little spiral to it. Alright, again like the other one, I'm just going to cut the base off. Give it some shape so it's nice and round, nice and pointy. Alright, now the trick to get that swirl going on it. Alright, but for this texture I'm going to take a skewer right here, and we're going to start at the, bring it over here. Start at the very beginning and then roll. And as you roll, you'll see that the curl starts appearing. And this can be done over and over, so that you have 2 or 3 curls going. See that? That looks pretty cool. So now let's start another curl in between these guys, between the other 2. Just keep your line between the other 2 lines and you will be in good shape. Alright, look at that. That's how you make a narwhal horn. So now what we need to do is decide on the texture. So again, you can use your brush and brush the texture on it, and then we'll smooth it out. You can also decide if you want the grooves to be really deep. If not, you can like smooth them out with one of your tools. I said this will be easy horn, so I'm not going to be doing any of that except this texturing right here, because I think this will look really cool. I think that's really cool texture there, right? So now let's work on a base, which you know how it's done. I'm going to roll a snake, put it around the base, blend it in a bit, and this one should be ready. Alright, so both the horns are sculpted. I moved them from the first mat to the second one. Let me show you, because we're going to build a mold on this one. So I'm cleaning this area up, get all this out of the way. Let's move these guys here carefully. That looks great. Last final touches, and now we're going to build the mold. Now for the mold, I'm using, it's just a folder divider, and we're going to fold it like this because it fits over the mold pretty well. Check it out. This fits perfect over without interfering, and it gives it enough room on the sides for the plaster. So I'm going to seal this with tape, and then we're going to mount it right here. There you go. I'm going to put a piece of tape on top, and that should be sealed. is perfect. And that will fit right over the horns. See if I can show you with my super camera gig. Alright, so this mold is positioned where I want it, the mold wall. So I'm just going to tack it in place with the hot glue gun first. Just make sure you have enough clearance on your horns on the sides and top. Hold it down and let's tack this. And now we can run the bead all the way around. There's a link to this gun in the description because I love it. It's 300 watts. Most guns are like 20 watts to 40 watts. This thing is a beast and super cheap too. And so far it's still working. So, and make sure it's sealed because the plaster, you don't want it to run out the bottom. We're going to use some clay on the bottom too to seal it some more. But this is your first layer from keeping the plaster from coming out. Awesome. Alright. Now let's make a snake with the leftover clay and put it all the way around. Alright, so I put the snake all around the base, sealed it on the bottom and the top, and it gives it a nice solid base. Alright, gonna set this aside and let's mix up some plaster. Room temperature water, regular pottery plaster. All the links are below for this. And I'm just going to start putting the plaster in the water slowly. That gives it a good opportunity to properly saturate. No clumps, nothing. Now this plaster reacts with the water to become rock. The inside of your nose and lungs is nice and humid, so you don't want to be breathing the plaster dust. So I'm wearing a dust mask. This is almost done. I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes. And that will make sure that the plaster absorbs all the water into it. It gets fully activated and there are no clumps or lumps. See you in 10. Let's pour this in. So, I've got the plaster mix here. Put some gloves on just for easy cleanup. I'm going to start mixing this by hand. Just get all in there. Scrape the edges. Scrape the bottom because it tends to sink to the bottom because it's rock. And this is like a thick pancake batter. See that? Now for this particular mold, I'm not going to paint the sculpture with plaster and then slowly layer it. We're going to pour it down the side, on the inside, but down the side, so that it slowly fills up until it covers the horns all the way. I think I want to get at least an inch above the tip of the horn, which is about right here where my finger is. So probably fill it up to there. Take a cup, adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and we're going to pour this down the side of the mold very carefully. That is full till about here, so I'm going to tap it real good so that the bubbles get dislodged and we can let this set. And with that design like the horns, you don't have to worry too much about trapping bubbles because there are no holes in the sculpt. There are no like eye sockets or in between teeth. It's a straight tapered shape, so the plaster should in theory just fill out that space without capturing or trapping any bubbles. This thing should be set in about an hour and a half, but I like to let it harden all the way, so I'm going to let it sit probably the rest of the day. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright, I went out to lunch and then to dinner. I'm back. I let this cure for a while, so let's unmold this and see how it goes. So I'm just going to peel that off, right? Get rid of this clay. And there are our horns. But first, let's get rid of this tape right here. And here is our mold. It's still very moist. Now the trick is going to be pulling the horns out of there. So I'm going to start scooping it out with a plastic tool so we don't scrape the detail. And then once we get to the end, we can like pressure wash it or just wash it with a soft brush to clean all the way inside. Let's start pulling this out then. All right, so this is like a plastic little dental kit from the dollar store. I'm using the plastic side to start scooping the clay out. I'm going to start in the middle because the edges start peeling off. As you can see, the edges peel off quite easily. I've never had to use mold release with this clay. It comes right off the plaster, no problem. It's peeling off pretty well from the side. See how clean the side is? All you have to do is push it up and take the clay out, and it peels by itself. So just keep going until it's as clean as you can get it. The mold is clean. Yesterday I went ahead and put it under water. Well, I pulled as much clay as I could with a plastic spoon, and then I took this bottle brush right here to get all the way into the very end. Now it's nice and clean. I let it dry overnight. It's nice and solid. I can feel it's still a little humid, not too much, but it'll work. So now we're going to take some liquid latex. We're going to pour it in the mold. We're going to let it sit for, let's try 1 hour just as a test, and we'll see what comes out. Let's do that. This is just regular liquid latex from Amazon. This is really old, that's why you have some of this, but it still works. I'll pour a little bit first, just so that we don't get any bubbles. So shake it real good. And I'll take this paintbrush, use the back. I'm just wiggling it around so that any bubbles get dislodged. This one's a little harder because it's curved, but there you go. Now we fill it up to the top. Now I would overfill it because this latex will shrink. And go ahead and wiggle this around to get any bubbles dislodged. Let that dwell for 1 hour. It's been about an hour. For the next time we're going to pour this out back in here. So get yourself a funnel and return all the liquid latex. Now this will need to drain, and you're going to let all that latex cure. Just let it sit there to drain. That is going to drain and cure all the way. So I'm going to say leave it for a few hours. I'm going to go for a run and I'll see you in a bit. It's been a few hours. That looks like it's cured, so let's remove the horns. You will need some talcum powder. And we're going to just put some in the mold so that the latex doesn't stick to itself. And I'm going to make sure to shake it real well so it gets on all the surfaces. Right, the moment of truth. So we're going to start peeling this off, but very carefully. Right, so here just use your finger to separate it from the side. Very carefully pulling the horn out, and there you go. Check it out. Has a little bubble here, but this stuff, you just cut it off like this and you're done. Here is a unicorn horn or a twisty horn. Latex is nice and firm, which means that you don't have to like stuff it. You can put maybe some polyfill in here, or you can have some expanding foam if you wanted to. But this is nice and light and stiff enough where it'll keep its shape. Let's see the other one. This is the curved one. So same thing, just as gentle as possible. Oh, came out by itself. No effort whatsoever. That is a perfect horn right there. Get rid of that powder there. Look at that. That is awesome. Check out the texture. Nice. And again, we left it for 1 hour. and that's more than enough for it to be stiff on its own without stuffing it with anything. All right, I'm going to cast a few more, then we can try these on, paint them, whatever. Okay, so I made 4, 2 of each of the unicorn, right? And 2 of the regular devil horns. These I started staining. Let me show you how I stained it to look like that. So it's quite easy. Check this out. All right, for this I'm just taking some, this is airbrush paint, and I got this on clearance. But you can use food coloring as well because it works the same. I tested it during one of my Twitch live streams. So I'm using the brown. We're basically putting just 1 drop of this because we're making a stain. Right, a little drop. And we are using some rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip. And we're going to dissolve some of this paint. And we're going to start staining the horn, right? And you decide how dark or how light you want it. And this will be just like a wash. And the alcohol will evaporate and it will leave the stain there. So let's get this all stained. And I want a base of brown, but we can paint it, whichever color we want. And this, as you can see, it darkens it just a little bit at a time. So you can layer this on slowly until you achieve the color you want. See that? And it dries really quickly. So that is almost dry. And it has that nice organic color. There's a fantasy character, then you might want to paint it a different color. But I wanted a gray base. And then what I wanted to do after this dries, you can dry it with a hairdryer. So see, that dries really fast. And there you go. That gives you a nice little stained color. Okay, so it all depends what color you want it. I think we should make the tips black and the base black. I think that will look cool. So I'm doing the same thing, taking some of this black color and putting a drop here. And I'm going to start at the tip. Start just darkening the ends. If it gets too blotchy, use your fingers to blend it in. I'm just blending it into the brown, as you can see. Because of the nature of the keratin or whatever this protein is on a horn, it's streaky, so just make some streaks going all the way down. There you go. That is the ends, and you can dry it with the hairdryer. Just that easy. See that? Alright, and I'm going to do the same at the base. And I'm just blending everything in. And you have yourself a horn-looking horn. And we'll make it shiny in a second. That's how you paint a horn to look like this one looks more like a real cow horn, but you can paint it whatever color you want. This can be all black, doesn't matter. So let's do the same to this one, and then I'll show you how to finish them. I have these matching as close as I can. Now we're going to give it a little bit of a shiny finish. So I'm using a chip brush and just plain liquid latex. You don't need a ton. You could tint this liquid latex if you wanted right here. If you wanted to give it like a hint of color, so you could add some red paint, or you could add some red food coloring, which we'll do with the unicorn horn. But for this purpose, I'm just going to use it plain. We're just putting a thin coat over it just to seal the finish. I would brush this latex in the same direction as the pattern of the striations that we made, which was like lengthwise like this. You can dry this with a hair dryer. I'm going to set it here for now on this pencil while I can paint this one, and then I can show you the unicorn one, because we're going to finish that one differently. And this liquid latex will dry translucent with a hint of yellow, just the same color as the horn. That's the color of cured latex. Perfect. Right, let's let that these guys dry. I mean, we'll help them with the hair dryer in a minute, but first I wanted to do this guy right here. So there's kind of a fantasy horn, so let's do it green. So I'm going to add about 2 drops, and we'll mix it up real good. Right, make sure it turns nice and green. And same as the other, we can paint this thing all the way, and it won't, it will dry just translucent green, so it'll be greenish, not all the way green. Right, I'm gonna hit this with the dryer real quick. Now I'm gonna test to see if this works. I'm getting some of this glitter right here. I'm going to sprinkle it on the horn and see how that works, and if we can coat it then with a little bit of more latex, see what that looks like. Now, while I coat this, I wanted to thank each and every one of you people viewing this video, and especially a special thanks to my patrons from Patreon, because it's because of you that I can buy all this liquid latex, have a nice camera to shoot good videos. So thank you so much to everybody on Patreon. All right, check that out. That has some sprinkly goodness, right? So, and now you can coat it with more liquid latex if you want to trap that, all those sprinkles in there. Just coat right over the sprinkles. They should be stuck to the latex. Just a thin coat to encapsulate them. Right, let's let this dry and see what happens. These are dry now. As you can see, they have a little sheen to them. They look like real horn. I'm surprised. So they're a little translucent, so you might want to put something in there if the light's shining through them, like a polyfill or something. But that's what they look like. And to apply these, we're going to use some spirit gum. And you just put the spirit gum around the edge, then tap it with your finger until it gets like really sticky. And then just quite simply put them where you want them, wherever they go. And you're good to go. That's how you make the horns. And here on the next scene, I'm going to show you what they look like. That is the unicorn horn. The liquid latex is not cured all the way yet, but that's kind of like the look that it's going to look like if you wanted to have a unicorn, a green unicorn horn with red, whatever. Okay, so I painted my nails. I'm going to put my horns on, my contacts, and I'll show you what everything put together looks like. Now, if you loved this tutorial, give it a thumbs up, share with your buddies if somebody wants to make horns, and don't forget to subscribe because we have all kinds of cool stuff coming. And don't forget, I stream live on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday from 4 till 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll see you there. You can ask me any questions about the horns or anything else. All right, watch this and I'll see you on the next one. So after you apply the spirit gum, attach the horns, get some contact lenses, some makeup, paint your nails, and you're good to go. All right, let's go to the final scene. You guys want to see something cool? Check this out. These are UV reactive. How cool is that? On the next tutorial, we'll make contact lenses out of used disposable Coke bottles. No, I'm just kidding. Buy FDA approved contact lenses always. I'll put a link below for where I got these.